Hey, what's up YouTube? It's Saabo the Hun here, back with some more Halo Infinite news. And as we all know, yesterday was the Xbox Series X and Series S launch event. And while we all know that Halo Infinite should have been launched today, but due to the delay, it will be coming out later this year. And while that's a little bit disappointing, and while we didn't hear anything at the launch event specifically about Halo Infinite, and we all kind of expected that simply because it's just a launch event, it's not about news or new games coming out. It's just simply to celebrate the launch of the next-gen consoles. However, what comes with that are interviews after the launch event, and Gamespot had an interview with Phil Spencer talking about the Xbox Series X and just the overall scope of the console and what they see in the future of this generation. And Phil Spencer says a lot of things about 343's development and Halo Infinite, and it's pretty hopeful. It's getting me kind of hyped up even more, and hopefully we'll see some content very soon, maybe within the next month or couple months. So let's just get straight into it. Prior to this, he talks a little bit about Game Pass and all the new games coming to it, and just in general architecture of Xbox Series X and S. If you guys want a link to this entire article and interview, I will link it down below so you guys can read it the entirety of it yourself, but I'm just going to focus mainly on the Halo parts. The interviewer asked, "You mentioned it earlier, you wanted it there from the start as an emotional thing, and not having it is obviously a big loss. What is your view on that franchise as it stands? Do you still feel like it is the juggernaut in entertainment that it was in the Xbox 360 days?" Which is kind of a big question to ask, so let's see what Phil Spencer has to say. He says, "I definitely think it has the potential for that power. I think there's something iconic about Bungie's creation originally about Master Chief. I teasingly call him the John Wayne in space, but this iconic hero character that I think people are drawn to. When I look at how well Master Chief Collection has done as it's gone to PC and as 343 continues to evolve it, even now for Xbox Series X and Series S, there's a high level of interest. With high level of interest comes a lot of pressure on the team, comes a lot of emotion when we don't hit the date that we wanted to hit. I take all that emotion and I feel that I have a positive sign for the franchise." So clearly here, Phil Spencer even understands that, you know, the delay of Halo Infinite was a huge impact for Xbox and 343, and it brought in a lot of pressure for both of them. You know, understandably so. The game was supposed to release now, and it was supposed to be the big exclusive game for Xbox and the next-gen consoles, right? But, you know, unfortunately, the delay had to happen due to, you know, development issues and just, you know, a bunch of technical issues that have been going on, especially with the pandemic. And I've said this before, it's a good thing that the delay happened, because we want the best Halo game they could possibly make. You know, we don't want anything late in the game. I would much rather them, you know, take their time and make a complete game on release, and then anything afterwards is just simply extra content and DLC that they can make, and not like technical updates and certain aspects of the game that should have been there at launch, you know. Continuing this, Phil Spencer just continues, you know, the whole iconic character platform and how they would rather not let a character define their platinum. However, they want, you know, you to define their platform. You know, it's a kind of like a nice like gesture towards their fans. However, this very last line, he says, "But I have a ton of belief in Halo and 343 and where we're going. I've played quite a bit of Infinite, and I'm looking forward to other people getting to play." What? So Phil Spencer has also played Halo Infinite, so now that even further confirms the fact that they're playtesting it, which is kind of obvious as the game is already a year away from development, so they're obviously playtesting it. But the fact that Phil Spencer is also playing the game, that's incredible. So I'm already jealous of him that he's even playing it. Like, I can't wait to be playing it and just have it in my hands. I'm super excited for that. So I hope that's a little bit of a relief for you fans, for all of us, because it is a relief for me that we know that, you know, Phil Spencer is playing the game, and he says that it looks really good and he's excited for us to be playing it. So continuing on, the interviewer actually asked a very interesting question, so I feel like a lot of fans want to, you know, hear Phil Spencer's answer to this. So he asked, "It feels almost like Halo's existence and the way its health is almost tied to the way Xbox is. In the time when Xbox was struggling to find its identity, the same seemed to have happened to Halo in the post-Bungie days. They kind of run parallel together. Now that Xbox seems to be on more of a steady footing based on what you're seeing in Halo Infinite, does it look like Halo is also starting to get on steady footing and build up momentum to get back into that good space?" So Phil Spencer's reply is actually very interesting. He says, "I definitely think 343 has a clear vision for what they want as a franchise and where it goes," which is great to hear. And it's an interesting spot when you have such a franchise with tens of millions of customers, fans who just love the franchise, and yet the state of the art in gaming continues to move on. So you're in this interesting world of wanting to balance the old and the new, which is good to hear, because we all know Halo Infinite is going to be that balance of old and new. He says, "I feel really good about the team and the vision that they have for where Halo can go. I think one of the things that this was, I'll put this on me because I'm head of the business. I think there were certain people that were looking for Halo Infinite to be this lifelike, gritty, real-world looking game when we first showed it, and for those of us that have been around Halo for a long time, that's never been Halo. It's always had a certain palette and certain look, and I actually think there's more games in the industry now that it's less about how realistic or how M-rated can I make a game, and more about the fun and engagement that games have, and that's where I really think that Infinite is going to shine. Yes, Phil Spencer, tell them. I've been saying this for so long. Halo has never been about the flashy, realistic looking graphics or the M rating, as much as we kind of would like more of a, blood and gore here and there. It was never about that. Halo has always had this simplistic, nice art style and like a certain palette, that exactly what he says, a certain palette and look. And all of us as fans know that. Halo 3 wasn't that revolutionary, graphically enhanced game that it was, and neither was Halo 2, nor Halo Reach. It only became in Halo 4 and 5 where they started actually getting a little bit too extra detailed. However, the games still never really looked as amazing as maybe like Red Dead Redemption 2 or games with photorealism. It was never about that. And especially with them bringing back the classic art style that we all asked for, it was never about the graphics. And as long as, I said this before in one of my videos, as long as the gameplay is really fun, I could care less about the graphics. However, the graphics are always a plus, but it's gameplay that comes first. And to me, the game looks extremely fun. And if Phil Spencer is saying that that's where the game is going to shine, that's a very positive thing for me, because I already know that the game is going to look a lot better once it launches, especially with ray tracing. And I hope that makes you guys even more hopeful to see what Halo Infinite is going to look like once they start releasing more content and once the game drops. So the interviewer asked, I really love the Halo franchise and I've enjoyed aspects of modern games, but when I think about it, my intense love of Halo is still very much rooted in Halo 1, 2, 3, ODST, and Reach. So for me, it's starting to kind of feel like a make or break moment for the franchise. Do you think that's fair to say? And what do you think 343 sees as the stakes for Infinite? I think it's a very interesting question, and I don't want to just read this entire paragraph. You guys can probably just like read this at some point on your own. But just to summarize it, Phil Spencer basically talks about Halo Reach and ODST, and how while a lot of fans, remember the nostalgia of Halo 1, 2, and 3, but that there was a lot of backlash for, Halo 3 ODST and Reach back in the days. Like, a lot of fans were asking, where's Master Chief as the central character? Who are these orbital drop shock troopers? And, where are the Spartans? And then going back to, mentioning, 1, 2, and 3, he starts to state that, a lot of people are starting to feel good about Halo 4. As time goes on, a lot of people have more appreciation for these games. And he's even saying that, he gets a lot of commentary now that Halo 4's story was amazing. However, they wanted a better multiplayer. And then with 5, people were saying that, Halo 5 is one of their favorite Halo multiplayers of all time. And before, people, start getting all crazy about that, it's, I've heard that too. While it's not my favorite personally, it's definitely one of my favorites because I think Halo 5's multiplayer did a phenomenal job. Right? It had a great competitive atmosphere. It had that casual gaming, custom games matchmaking. Warzone was incredibly fun. There were flaws with it, and even if you didn't like the enhanced mobility, Halo 5's multiplayer still offered a lot of fun for, a lot of Halo gamers. And for me personally, I would put that on my top 3 of best Halo multiplayers of all time. For me, I would say it's either 3 or 2 is top 2, and I always switch between those, and I would put Halo 5 right behind both of those. I do want to state his last line of the first paragraph is when they first come out, there are certain expectations, but then over time, I think certain games, and especially in the Halo franchise, become beloved, even if they weren't universally embraced when they came out, right? So moving on to the next paragraph where he talks about Halo Infinite and what 343 thinks, he says, so I don't look at any one of those individual launches, Infinite included, and say there's some kind of make or break, because I just don't think entertainment works that way. Do I think Master Chief and the challenge that we put him in the games has an enduring quality and something that will be around for a decade plus? Absolutely. Is it beholding on us to treat that franchise and the stories and the characters the right way? Yes. And listen to our customers? Absolutely. But I think Halo is around for a long time, kind of, and Infinite will be a great beat in the Halo lore. So I'm excited to see what they're going to bring campaign-wise. So clearly, Phil Spencer is saying that the campaign is going to be, extraordinary. I'm really hoping so. I mean, so far it seems very interesting, and the Banished are going to be a great enemy to face against because I genuinely love the Banished. I think they're extremely cool. I think they're a great, sequel to the Covenant in a sense, right? The next question, I actually love this question because it brings up our Lord and Savior Craig. The interviewer asked, "I'd like to make a request on behalf of all Halo fans. Can we get a reversible cover for Halo Infinite when it comes out with Craig on the other side? I know everyone loves Master Chief, but I think the new era of Halo is tied up in Craig." That would be amazing if they did that. And Phil Spencer's response was, "We actually have these t-shirts. I didn't wear it today, which is Craig's face," which is so funny. I want one of those t-shirts so badly. I love that the team embraced that. It was just so funny. Yeah, I think Craig will be around for many, many decades in the Halo lore. You'll find his pictures all over the place. Yeah, probably in games somewhere. So we're probably going to see a bunch of Craig Easter eggs and a bunch of first-party Xbox exclusives in the future, which is going to be hilarious. So moving on from the Craig thing, the interviewer asked an interesting question about staff turnover. So he says the other thing about Halo is there's been a level of staff turnover and changed at 343 this year. And obviously people see that. You get armchair analysts and you get various people starting to worry. Can you give us a status update on the game and the team there? And is the turnover something that we should be worried about? So this is regarding like the people leaving, developers such as Chris Lee, Tim Longo, and Mary Olsen, I believe. So Phil Spencer's response was, "I think this has been a long project and I think they've added people to the team. When I think about it, head of publishing Pierre Hintz, who last time I remember talking about him, I thought he was the head of the multiplayer, but I'm not exactly sure. And then moving on from that, project lead Joseph Staten coming onto the team. Sometimes what hits the press or when certain things get announced internally have actually happened months before." And I've said this already in the my Chris Lee video, which if you guys haven't seen, I'll put it up on top so you guys can check that out. That Chris Lee was actually sidelined from the game months ago, months prior to the news. And Joseph Staten came on board around that time just to take over his spot as project lead. So there was no actual, anything to really worry about. It was just, once the news heard about it, they kind of just exaggerated the situation and just made headlines, making it sound way worse than it actually was. So moving on from that, it's not always accurate when these things line up. We did take the feedback coming out of the July showcase event seriously, both on the date and what people were expecting from the game. It was a miss on our part, on my part, to open our July showcase with Halo Infinite and then a couple weeks later have to move the date. Like that, I don't take the sentiment and the emotion of our fans and our customers lightly. And when we get into a situation where we set an expectation that here, this is something you're going to have at launch, and then we have to change that expectation not too much after our showing, that's a mistake. And that's something that we really can't do. So I really have a lot of faith in Bonnie Ross and the team. They're having Joe and Pierre join, which they did late in the summer. I feel good about where we are on that team, but as an industry, we're always going to see turnover. I don't have any specific concern about 343. I actually think in the long run, turnover is a healthy thing because we want people who are really motivated by things that they're working on. And honestly, this makes a lot of sense because, turnovers happen a lot more often than you think in gaming development. There were situations even with Cyberpunk 2077 where people were leaving even like last year. Some people, come and go in the gaming development world. And you come in, you do your part, and if you're done, you will leave, or who knows what exactly happens. I'm not too into it, but I do know some things. See, in this situation with Chris Lee leaving, they had a replacement afterwards immediately, which was Joe Staten, to make sure everything was just going on track and making sure that they can deliver the game home. It seems kind of relieving to see Phil Spencer's response to this, that the game isn't struggling at the moment. They're just making sure they can fix what they need to fix. They're just making sure the game gets the right amount of development time, making sure they're able to get all the issues that they have done, make sure the game is complete with no issues, and once it comes out, everybody is happy with the product. Overall, to me, this makes me even more hopeful for the game, and I'm really hoping to see some content within the next month or two, just a little something. But whenever 343 is ready to release anything, I'll be happy with it. I would much rather them release, content that is actually complete and looks good, and we don't have another July event demo happen again where they released footage of something that wasn't complete and would look disappointing to the fans. So that's all I have for today. Sorry, there was a lot of stuff to read there was a lot to get through, and I hope you guys are a lot more hopeful with the development of Halo Infinite, and and hearing that 343's team is doing well from Phil Spencer himself, and the fact that he's actually playtesting the game himself and actually playing it. That's exciting to hear. If you guys like the video, please thumbs up, subscribe, follow me on Twitter because I'm doing giveaways at the moment for Nabisco Xbox codes. I still have a bunch to give away. I do like Halo trivia and stuff, and you guys won't miss a video on Twitter because I post all the time. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next video. Peace.